Hi, my friend, and welcome to the Good Girl Syndrome Show. My name is Julie Vander Meulen or Julie Vander Meulen, depending on where you are in the world. And I am an expert in what I call Good Girl Syndrome. It's a concept that existed before me. A psychologist created it a few years ago, but there was very, very little research on it. And so I started, first, I like the concept for myself, right? So I first analyzed myself for a few years, and then I started trying to identify patterns in myself and in other women, specifically the women that I coached and the audiences that I had. And I started finding different patterns that kept coming back and like the little differences that were happening between women. And so that's how I specialized in that. And so I've developed a whole theory and framework for coaching, but also for self-development around that concept. And this is what this show is all about. So in the episode that I just recorded before now, we were actually unpacking one of my clients, Maryse, hi Maryse, if you're listening to this, who had asked a very, very deep question. Actually, it was so deep that I did this for the first time. I've never done this before. I actually cut her question into two different episodes. So this week we are specifically talking about patterns of, being influenced by other people who have good girl patterns, and like how do you um you know how do you kind of have boundaries but also like you don't get back into your own good girl ways, right? um while you're trying to navigate these relationships between you being a recovering good girl and then having other people being good girls. So that was what we did on Wednesday by unpacking what Maryse was asking. And then next week, what we're going to do is we're going to focus more specifically on boundaries. And that part of Mary's question was more around how do you navigate the fact that you've changed, right? Like, how do you, like in real life, how does that look like, to like set boundaries and like, do you, basically, out of my memory from what she was saying, she was basically asking, is it okay if I like break my own, my own word, and if I'm disloyal to myself for once because it's just once, or am I like, or is this reinforcing my pattern? Like she was asking quite a deep question as well on that. So that's what we're going to do next week. But for today, what I'm going to be focusing on is my own experience with how I let other people's voices influence me. And what that used to look like before for me and what that looks like now. And perhaps a little tool, if I can say it like that, like how I myself go through um, little checklist of like, am I going to, it's very quick once you understand it and you integrate it. It's actually very quick to do, it's very easy. But basically, like that's how I think, like when someone is trying to influence me, and in a split second, I need to understand like, do I want this feedback or not, or do I want this idea or not? Like, how do I actually face it? So that's what this episode here is going to be about. Before I forget, if you've been enjoying these episodes so far and you're happy to be seeing this topic here, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment below if you want to just say hi, say hello so that I know you're here. Don't forget, if you want your question answered, you like these episodes, and you actually have an issue, a situation, a question that you personally have, or you know someone who has a question like that, don't forget to go in the description box below. It can be in Spotify and in YouTube. You will find a link to a Google form, and on that Google form, you can ask me any question you want. There's a bit of a lineup, so I might not take your question for next week. You heard next week will be Marie's. I have a few other questions before that, but do put it in, and in the next few weeks, I will get to yours as well, and I'll be sure to answer to the best of my ability. So here we go. So um, for me, being influenced by others was a big thing in my life. In the sense that I was very much a good girl. I still am, right? And in some ways. But yeah, I think I had no no personality of my own. It's a bit sad, but I think it's the truth. I think I started therapy when I was 20, 25 or 26. And I remember one of the things that I was telling the therapist was, I don't know what it is about me, but I have the sensation that I'm like a chameleon. Like any person that I meet, I instantly connect with very, very deeply on like the things that they have in common with me. And so, which is good, right? In some ways, it's great. But the thing that was behind it that was bothering me was that I felt like I was like, if I had 10 different people in my life, I was 10 different people myself. Like with each of them, I was a different version of myself. And where that got complicated is that when I was younger, I hated for my worlds to collide. I didn't like for one friend to see another friend and so on and so forth because I was just so different. Like I didn't know how I would be able to act, right? Because I didn't realize it at the time, but I was always adapting so much to the person who was in front of me that there was no Julie per se, right? Which is to say that then I'm saying all of that because then when it came to other people's influence, even just their presence in my inner world meant that I was mimicking them. I was trying to be like them because I was most probably trying to be liked and accepted and, all of those different things. And I thought that's how you built relationships, right? And so, uh, suffice it to say that I was someone who was very easily influenced by other people, very, very easily influenced by other people. Not all people, but the people who mattered to me, like whatever they would say, whether I agreed or not, it would like have a lasting, lasting impact on me. And so I would kind of be like a sponge. Anything you would say to me, I would have a very, very deep internal turmoil because of anything that anyone could have said. So I was hypersensitive to any sort of criticism, or even not criticism, sometimes just, pointing out facts, right? I just saw something yesterday by an amazing psychologist. I can't remember her last name. Her first name is Amanda. She's a fantastic woman, and she was talking about some differences in like how women and men relate to feedback, like naturally, let's say how we have a tendency to behave. And she was saying that for a lot of women, if a man or but anyone says just states a fact like, "Oh, the green beans are cold," um, that a lot of women will take this as criticism because it's dramatic because who made the green beans? No, it's them, no? And so it's a funny example, but I thought it really represented how I could all the time, like could feel all the time and how I still sometimes feel that you could state just a fact and I would take it very personally. I would take it to mean something about me, about how much I failed, all these different things. So, yeah, so that meant that then when it came to feedback and also receiving opinions about my life, I just would always take it into account. So I would take anyone's feedback into account all of the time, and I would let it influence my decisions, which meant that for a very, very long time, I made decisions that did not resemble me. And at the same time, I didn't know who was me. So I was unhappy to be doing the things I was doing, but I also had no sense of direction really of what I actually wanted because I didn't know who I was and I didn't know what I needed. I didn't even know needs were a thing. I just knew sometimes that most of the time I didn't want to do the things that I was doing. I was finding joy sometimes. Most times I was feeling proud of like having done the thing, right? And being the type of person who did the things, right? Um, but yeah, not much joy in my life and zero alignment. I had no idea what alignment of like what alignment actually felt like. Alignment is actually one of the topics that we will cover in the next few weeks. It's one of the questions that I received. But anyway, so how I went from being this person who was always influenced by other people's opinions to now being someone who overall, right? Not in every way, but mainly I do my own thing. And I'm known as someone who can be, at least in my family, who can be difficult in a sense that I don't allow feedback. So I have a rule around me, which is that in general, I'm someone who does not like being told things. So if I need help, I will ask for it. If I didn't, don't assume I need help or I want your opinion, because I don't. So that makes me qu quite difficult to be around sometimes for the people who are closest to me, not my partner and so on, because we have different rules, right? Different rules in the sense that he does not feel like he needs to tell me what I need to do, right? So the environment is different, so I don't seem difficult in that environment because if you don't impose your own thoughts and own opinions on me, then I'm a very open type of person. I'm very open-minded. I love receiving, feedback of all sorts and stuff like that. But I do not like to receive opinions about my own life from other people in general, especially unsolicited advice, right? And so I think that's the that's the starting point. Is how I started to change was realizing that one, once I understood what I wanted, I realized that I never wanted other people's opinions about my life. I didn't want it. And then when I started being connected to my needs, I felt like actually there's a whole theory about that, about like how people relate to the world. Some people, they need external feedback to like feel aligned and to be reassured with what they actually feel. And some people, they make the decisions internally. I'm very definitely very, very high on making decisions internally. And so, what I need when I'm making a decision about something is not to converse with the whole world and understand how, like, what different perspectives would be on my decision. It's not what I need, right? It doesn't mean it couldn't be useful at times. I'm saying it's not what I need. And so, what I need is I need time with myself. I need to gather my thoughts. I need to have alone time. I need to have deep focus type of time. And I need to feel things. I need to feel there's a sense of alignment that comes to me. And that's when I know that this is the right decision for me. I don't need to know here if this is the right strategy. That's a different conversation that I have with myself and with others. But how it makes me feel is how I judge if something is right for me. And so if someone starts giving me their opinions on what they think I should do and how they think I feel and all these different things, what it creates for me is noise. It creates noise. So either because it's mistaken, right? And so now I need to like be in the chaos of like finding out what they said that was true. Like I'm wasting time, if you see what I mean. When inside of me, I have all the answers that I need. And if they're not there, then and I feel like I need some extra feedback, then what I will do, it's another second belief that I have and that I've communicated, which is I will ask for your opinions on something if I think that you're on the same level as me on that specific topic or higher. If you're someone that I admire on that topic, right? Not in general, on that topic, then if I want to, I will ask you for your advice. Or I will like open the door and say, what do you think about that? Like, well, how do you deal with that? I will very much do that if I can see that you are either on a similar level as me or you're somewhere higher. If you're at a lower level than me on this thing, I do not want your opinion because you are making on this specific topic, not in general, but on this specific topic, you will make less informed, less wise decisions. Your state of mind, your values, like there's many things that will not be aligned with me. So anything that you will give me will either not be correct, right, in general, because you lack the knowledge and the wisdom on this topic. Two, you might not share the same values as me because you are not at the same level as me. And so, which means that to be able to go a step up, you need to release some old beliefs and you need to gain some new beliefs, right? So they can be slightly different from one another, but there's distinct at every level of mastery of any topic. There's new beliefs that you must acquire, basically, and some that you must let go of about yourself, about the world, about different things, about this specific topic. Tools that you master, like whatever it is. Or last thing, third thing is, or you might just not have the proper way to express things. So if you're going to take 15 minutes to unpack a thought that I have completely understood 3 years ago, and for you, it's like there's so much joy in unpacking that thought and telling me about, again, I have a sensation that I'm wasting my time. And if we're having like a natural conversation and we're just spending time together, who cares, where you are? Like it's a conversation. But if I'm in a specific situation where you feel like I need your opinion, which means you feel like I need your help, then help me. Like if you're going to help me, actually help me, right? So that's another rule. And so I came to all of that because I realized what I wanted, which was I don't want feedback. I like to be free and I like to make my own decisions, right? Second, I realized what I needed, which was I need to be in contact with what I was saying to Maryse in the previous session, in the previous episode, when she was asking me, like, basically, how do I help my daughter differentiate between what to take from her grandma, right? From the inheritance from her grandma of like some of the good girl principles that she received, basically in her education, and what does she let go of? Like what is not, how does she make the distinction and how do I teach her that, right? And there were two answers to that for me. And the first one, the most important one was to help her develop her own inner compass. And so that's basically like what I was talking about here. It's like to have, I realized that I needed to have my own inner compass on this topic. And so and then there's the third thing, right? So I needed to tell that to people, to express that to people, to say, like that's how I make my own decisions. Like I don't need that. Like, and that's, I think, to me, that's the part that especially good girls have a hard time, and women, besides good girls, women in general have a hard time understanding. So I have that with my friends as well. I have the most well-intentioned friends. They're fantastic. They're wise. They're like all the things, very intelligent. And yet, many times they seek to help me in the ways that they want to be helped, if you see what I mean. But their way, I have specific features to me because I'm very hermit-like. I like being on my own. Many times, other women confuse my hermitness for me withdrawing out of there's something, how can I say that? That like if I'm feeling overwhelmed, what I want and what I need is to be on my own, right? And so I do not need for my friends to constantly write me messages. Are you okay? Is this is overwhelming. This is part of what is causing the overwhelm is like all the messages and the things of like asking me if I'm feeling this way. Because how I soothe is I go back to my own internal compass. I try to understand what is causing my distress and I get out of it. You know what I mean? I don't want the relational thing of saying what's going on and what were all the details of what happened in the situation. This is not what I need, right? It's what they need and it's what they want, right? Because they want to help me and they're good girls and they don't want to leave me alone and they have all their principles, but it's not what I need and it's not what I want, right? So it's like it's a complex type of situation because, like Maryse was saying in the conversation of the previous episode, you don't want to hurt other people. I don't want to hurt people who want to help me and who love me and who, they have the best intentions, right? And this is where I think to me the besides the few things, the few keys that I just gave, I think to me one pivotal idea, something that radically changed things for me was understanding that just because someone has good intentions doesn't mean that they're right, you know, and that most of the things that the people I love the most have done, well, it's not all, but most of the things they did because they thought they were doing it for me, right? So people do for me things I don't need or want. You see what I mean? And we all do that. And then because we don't want to hurt them, we let them, right? We let them do the things that are actually hurting us or like annoying us or like they're actually not helpful at all because we can sense they're being helpful. We're being good too, right? They're being good, so they're being overprotective over everything, right? And that's not what we need or what we want, right? Because they're taking part of our agency, they're taking care of us as if we're children and stuff like that. It talks about their wounds, not about our wounds in the moment, right? But we let them because we also have this wound, right? We know what it's like to want to take care of someone and you have good intentions. And so we let them do that. And it's like a whole cycle where we don't tell other people what we actually really want or need. And because people have good intentions and they're good people, we don't want to say like specific things to them. But then my inner compass, if I go back to that, is actually that doesn't matter. Like for me, no, I'm not talking about relationally here. I'm not saying I'm going to go first inward and then I'm going to tell you how I deal with it then relationally with someone else. But for me, I have no benefit of having a friend or a family member or whatever who gives me opinions and tries to help me in ways that are unhelpful, and then me pretending like they're helpful. Like this whole thing makes no sense, like objectively. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's a lie. It's a lie for me and it's a lie for them because it's comforting them that the behavior that they have is useful when it's not, right? It's not helpful for them because they're doing something that they could be doing something else, right? And also because they're compensating for something. They're trying to help you when it's actually them who are in a little me type of space, right? And so you're just allowing them, but it's also not helping you because for me personally, it's making me waste my time at this phase of my life. This is how it feels like. Before, what it would do, and still sometimes it does, it would really confuse me. It would confuse me because people would tell me things, and because I was like a sponge, even as I was learning to like extract myself from other people's opinions, the thoughts would still be there. They would still be lingering because I would be thinking, what if they're right? What if they're. And so there's a lot of doubt that would creep in that I definitely did not need or did not want. And so then when I started understanding that actually good intentions aren't everything, that like just because you have good intentions and you're a good person, right, doesn't mean that your behavior is right. And doesn't mean that I have to accept it and I have to live with it, right? And so my first thing to my own inner compass is very simple. Is like, okay, Julie, so you received this thing. Clearly you're thinking about it. So how does it actually feel? Does it feel good? No. No, it does not feel good. What specifically? Like, how does it feel really? It feels like I'm oppressed. It feels like I need to be, disloyal to myself because I don't want to hurt them. It feels like a heavy weight on my chest. It also feels like I'm trapped into a cycle that then I don't know. Like if I've said yes 10 times to this behavior and I've said they're amazing, how do I tell them now, that I don't want this behavior anymore? Like it was all a lie. Like there's a lot of different things that it makes me feel. It makes me feel like I'm a child. Like, it makes me feel a lot of doubt. I'm afraid now because in the process of them trying to save me and to help me, they've also passed down to me all their fears and all their perceptions of the world, which I did not have 10 minutes ago before they tried to help, right? So I think that identifying that, how things actually make you feel, is the first thing. Like you don't have to be a hermit like me, right? Your inner compass can be, and your time with yourself can be 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be 3 hours of like deep inner reflections on every single thing. But it's just like taking a real moment of honest truth within yourself and with yourself, to say, how does this actually really feel, and why? Like, what's the thing that is actually bothering me? And then when I'm thinking of it, I'm like, I unpack it. I'm like, so why did it bother me? Or why does it not feel good? And I wrote down right before I started this, I wrote down 4 different questions that I tend to ask myself. So one is, did I want this feedback or this opinion or this vision of the world? So it's the focus is on I want. Did I want it, right? Because if I did not want something and you're still giving it to me and pouring it on me, when you haven't double checked with me if I want this or not, then you are invading my inner world. Out of what you think is kindness, you are invading my own inner world with your visions and your fears and all your things, right? Which to me doesn't feel like something that anyone should be doing, right? If I see it like that, it's not always easy to see, but that's the first question. So did I want that? No. So if I don't want it, and this person still did it, either I said no, right? That's a further point. I said no and they still did it, in which case this is very disrespectful, right? Or I have not expressed it because, you ask for a form of consent, right? If you ever come in a coaching session with me, I will ask you for your consent, not just once. I will ask you for your consent throughout all the sessions. I will tell you push back when you want to push back. I don't know how this feels about you. Tell me how that makes you feel. Does any of this resonate? Like I'm asking you constant permission throughout the thing. And why I'm doing it is not because it's something that I learned. It's because it's something that I feel I need, you know? Like in my good girl ways, and especially if you're in a session, a coaching session, even if we are in a horizontal type of relationship, when I'm not superior to you, there's moments when you are giving me your deepest, truest, most vulnerable thoughts that perhaps you don't share with someone else or rarely do, right? And you're sharing them with me. And in this moment, I'm the observer, right? And you know I have an expertise in this domain. And you come to me because you want help from me. So even if we think we are horizontal, there's always a risk that either I will have a tendency through my questions to slightly be a little bit in a superior position to you, or you might put yourself in an inferior position because you're wondering what I think about things. So I have to be extra careful that anything that I think, any projection that I have, any presuppositions, any ways of seeing the world, that like I am not putting those on you. And if I do, I need to constantly ask you for permission and constantly like remind you that like this is your life and this is your inner world. I'm just being invited here. So at any time you can just push back and put me back where I belong, right? Like I'm here on invitation. And why I'm saying this is because I think sometimes as good girls, we forget that people can only come into our own minds through our invitation. This is an invitation and it's a privilege. People cannot just step into our minds whenever they feel like it, right? So that's my first thing. Do you want the thing or not? And if you don't, they are invading your property. They're invading your own mind. It's a strong word, but it's just so that you can remember it. So if you do not want it, like you need consent, right? So you do that for others if you want to respect that. The fact that most people, if you barged in, they will just let you in your mind, right? So put a barrier there and say, ask me for my consent. You know, do I want the feedback or not? Or be prepared to be assertive and say, hey, actually, like I see you have the best intentions here, but right now I'm actually not in a phase where I want the feedback or I want the opinion or whatever. Like I did not say this to receive an opinion. Thank you so much, right? Whatever suits you best. The second thing that I ask myself is, do I need it? Right? We go back to the beginning. Do I need this? And then there's another interesting pattern here, especially with other good girls. It's what I was telling you with some of my friends, right? If I don't need something and I don't want it, right? I haven't given permission for someone to step into my mind, but they are still giving me their opinion because they want to help me, right? Do I need it? No, right? So if I don't want it and I don't need it, then why are they doing it? They're doing it because they think they want to save me in the moment, just like I could do with someone else. But they want to save me from whatever they perceive is happening with me. When for me, nothing is happening with me. I'm just having a human emotion, or I'm just making a decision, or I'm just perhaps in a lower state or a lower energy, but nothing is happening to me that needs saving. And if someone needs to save me, it'll be me, right? And if I need to be saved by someone else, I'll ask, right? Um, right? But I don't need to be saved, at least not automatically. And so if someone feels like I need something that I don't perceive, you know what I mean? They're in a state of mind where they're trying to save me, and I do not want to be saved, right? Because it puts them, them or us, when we do that with other people, it puts them in a superior position, right, of the savior, and it puts us in a victim who needs to be rescued. It's not a good dynamic to be in, right? It makes them feel fantastic, right? Because they're contributing and they're helping and they're doing all the things, but we didn't need it, right? So then behind the scenes, what will happen is we will build resentment because we'll be like, this person, like now I have to be thankful for something that I didn't need, didn't want. And then after a while, we will be resentful towards this person while never telling them anything. And then at some point, they will be resentful because they'll be like, I keep saving this person and helping them. And look at how they're treating me, So it's a whole dynamic. I'm sure many of you can relate to the little scenario that I just described. So that's the second thing. Do I need it? And are people trying to save me? And do I need or want to be saved? Right? The third question that I ask myself is what I was mentioning earlier. Did I say no? Have I already said no? Like, I don't want this feedback. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want your opinion on this. And they're still doing it. Like in the moment or then afterwards. Like, are they basically, I stated a boundary and they're still walking all over it, right? If this is happening, then this is a sign of like disrespect, right? So I stated what I wanted and what I needed and what was appropriate for me. And you still came with your like your big dirty shoes and you walked all over my inner world, right? Because you have no respect for the things that I say that I need or I want. You want to do what you think is best for me, right? Um, so that's the third rule. And then to me, then what that creates when I put it in this way is like all of these things for me trigger a sense of like, if not anger, because right now I don't have a situation like that. They make me very, very, how can I say, aware of what is happening when someone is behaving in a specific way with me. And so instead of feeling like a good girl, like, oh, but they're so nice, or oh, but how am I gonna, I don't want to hurt them. I'm like, actually, they're hurting me. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones doing something that I do not want. So, I'm not feeling grateful right now. When I read these things, I'm like, no, like I don't want this. Like please take a step back and go back to your lane and like, you know, like I don't feel all the emotions that I used to feel as a good girl because I have these lenses that I'm like, I don't want this, I don't need this. I said no. Like what are you doing? It's a completely like reverse type of interpretation of things. The fourth thing that I ask myself, and it's the one that happens the most often right now in my life. The first three still happen. The second one can still happen sometimes with my friends, sometimes with my family as well, where they try to help when I'm like, I do not need the help. Like, stop saving me. Like this is you trying to rescue me, and I don't want you to rescue anyone, and I don't want to be rescued for sure because I want to keep my agency. I want to feel proud. This to me does not feel good. So go back in your lane. If I need something, I'll ask, right? But the one that happens the most is number four, which is I ask myself after all of that, do I want this person's feedback? What's different here is this person. So emphasis on this person because I may want feedback in general, right? So let's say I'm now progressing, which is the truth. I'm progressing now in my business. I'm expanding in different ways. Some advice and some things would be really useful for me, right? So I go and find specific coaches and mentors who can help me out on this specific path that I'm on right now, right? And I would assume you do a version of that as well. Perhaps your therapists change over time, your teachers, the courses you have, the books you read, right? They change depending on the phase that you're in and what you need and want in the moment, right? Same for me. But then people often come as a whole package. They see themselves as a whole package of wisdom, right? They don't see themselves as like a person with different buckets of wisdom, right? There's my finance type of wisdom. There's my good girl syndrome knowledge. There's my coaching knowledge. There's personal development. There's relationship knowledge. There's health knowledge. There's, I don't know, beauty knowledge. There's world type of knowledge. There's whatever, the news type of knowledge. There's all sorts of knowledge inside of me, right? And inside of you and so on and so forth. If you were to come to me and ask me about my opinions on how to repair my computer, I am not the person you want to ask. And so the problem is most people come to any type of situation with the assumption that because they're knowledgeable in general, because they have some pockets of knowledge, right? I am pretty good with good girl syndrome. I'm pretty good with personal development, pretty good with coaching, right? Because I have this knowledge there. I could have an assumption that, you know what, actually right now I'm a pretty big deal. I'm kidding, of course, but I'm just impersonating that. I'm a pretty big deal now, right? So I'm a very knowledgeable person. So you can come to me with any type of information because that's just a person that I've become now. And so from that type of behavior, if I were to believe that and embody that, then I would start giving you my opinions on every single topic because I'm so knowledgeable, right? I could give you my opinions on the state of the world because 5 years ago I happened to do a PhD in political science. When the reality is, back then I had some sort of interesting opinions, if so, right, on specific topics. But right now it's been 5 years. So anything that I knew back then, most of it, I don't practice it. So I can't even remember, right? I'm not reading the news like I used to. Like there's many things that I've lost, right? Which is not to say that none of the things I learned before are worthy of anything, right? I could still pretty much hold a decent conversation around different topics, right? But I'm not this knowledgeable. This is not my area of expertise. And I think most people make the mistake of thinking they need to have opinions on pretty much anything and to sound smart. You know what I mean? To sound like they are knowledgeable and they know stuff. And I think most of the people who are around us have some version of that. And so they feel like around life, right? Because that's another bucket of wisdom, life type of knowledge. Anyone can claim that they have wisdom because they've lived, no? And so the people who are older than us can have the impression that because they've lived more life, that they have more experience, and that means they're more knowledgeable and wise, right? And so I think to me, that's the thing that I have to think about. Is this person's feedback, like this person is talking to me right now. Do I want them in my life or not? Right, is the first thing. But if they're close to me on this specific topic, right, do I want to listen to their opinion or not? Like, are they at a similar level to me or slightly higher or way above me on this level or not? Because if not, then I don't want to listen to what you have to say. It can be harsh, but it's the truth. I actually don't want you to tell me your, how can I say, mediocre opinions on, like, if you were to listen to my opinions on how to repair a computer, you don't want to listen to me. Like, even if I think that I understand two things because my dad was really good with computer and could fix a whole computer, you do not want to listen to me. The only thing that could be useful for me to say is, look, I'm really sorry, but this is really not my area of expertise. Like I can barely, use my computer. But I know this and this person who could help you out. Or I've seen this YouTube channel, perhaps you want to take a look. And that's it. That's the extent of how much I can help you. And if someone is doing that in like life skills, right? Real life type of things, it's the same rule, my friends. It's like, is Julie doing well in her relationship? Does she have the type of relationship that I want? Is she treating her boyfriend, I should say my fiance, her fiance, like how I want to treat mine? Is he treating her like, I want to be treated? Is like, I don't know, like, is their life plan the same? Do they have values that are similar? Like, are you inspired by my relationship or not? It can be a yes or it can be a no. That's up to you. If it's a no, then, don't ask for my opinion because I'm going to give you opinions, that reflect my own values and how I live my life and what feels that is right for me. If I have now a terrible relationship, which I don't, I have a really beautiful relationship right now, at least to my standards, right? If I had a poor relationship right now and I was there telling you all the things, about what I know about relationships, you do not want to listen to me because my opinions will be delved in all my negative experiences. And so I will put all sorts of doubts about men, about relationships, about how women feel, about how it's incompatible to be with them. I don't know what I could come up with, right? But we all know people who have poor relationships in their lives and they don't understand that part of the problem has always been them, right? It's because they lack knowledge and wisdom and the right type of experience in that. And so they're not going to help us. They're not going to make us move forward. They're going to make us move backward, which is not to say that there's nothing to learn from other people's mishaps. The issue is when you're a good girl and you are like a sponge, like I used to be, then sometimes you can't differentiate between the two in the moment. And so it's very important for you to be able to understand how it makes you feel and how you actually feel about that person before you get sucked into the story. And so that's when, and we will talk about that next week. And then that's when you can learn to set some boundaries and say, actually, like, I love you so, so much, right? I love you so, so much and I respect you and I think you're such a wise and intelligent person, which I believe, right? But in this area of your life, like, would you say that like you have the most wonderful experience? Like, is that what you want for me? Do you want me to have your experience of life in that? Because usually these are people who are complaining in one area. Is that what you want for me? Yes or no? Probably it's a no. If it's a no, it's an easy decision, right? We're going to talk about this next week. Then that makes it very easy. Most people, by the way, you just ask them that, they are humbled, right? They remember and they're humbled and they just take a step back. Some people will still say, yeah, but I have all this experience and I understand. And that's when you can say, well, I'm actually not, I don't want, anyone's opinion on this topic. Like if I appreciate that you really want to help and you want to tell me all those things. How about you tell me when I ask you? I may never ask you, but perhaps there will be a time that I will want to ask you, right? But right now is not the time. Like now I don't want any feedback on anything. I'm good. Like thank you, but I'm really good. Don't burst my bubble right now. I'm doing really good. So that's what I'm using. And I also the last thing that I would say is also, something that I do now that I would never have said before, when it comes to other people telling me things, even like especially good girls, is I will explicitly say the things that they don't like to hear and that I used to not like to say, which is, I'm like, yeah, this is very interesting. Like whatever your opinion or your position, I'm like, interesting. And I'm like, it's interesting because I actually don't believe what you just said. Like I think it's very logical and I love this for you, but this is not how I think about these things. And so they'll be like, oh, like, or I would say, it's interesting because we're very different in the way we approach this topic, right? So very interesting for me to understand your perspective, right? And I fully understand, like, makes sense what you're saying, right? Just very different from how I see things. And I find that just saying this a version of that often diffuses a lot of things because it makes the other person more uncertain. They're not in the superior position anymore. They're a bit more uncertain, not just of their beliefs, but they don't know. Like you didn't object to them. You didn't say you'd said that they said something wrong. You said that this is interesting and you value their opinion, you understand them, which is what most people want to do. They want to be seen, they want to be understood, right? We all want that. So you did that part. You love them, you understand them, you see them, you appreciate them, you respect their opinions. You're just saying, it's different from me, right? And you also don't give details. You don't have to give details of like, it's not because of X and Y. You can just say it's interesting, but like very different, right? If you want to get into a conversation of how it's different, and like that's up to you if you want to do that, right? But it changes the whole dynamic where they're not there preaching or teaching you something. It's like you came back up and you're like, I fully see you, right? We're horizontal again. And that's it. We're just different. It puts you and it creates a little bit of a distance between the two as well where this person is reminded, oh, okay, so I thought we were so connected that I can say anything I want to this person. And this puts them back as like, so much love, so much respect, but like these are two different paths. You and me, two different people. And sometimes we need a reminder of that. So in any case, I hope this was helpful for you. Um, I cannot wait to do the next episodes on the boundaries. I'm sure you're gonna love it as well. I'm sure going to love unpacking Marie's second part of her question. That was very, very interesting. I will see you next week, my friend. Enjoy your week. Um, I will now go and schedule the newsletter for today. So I hope you enjoyed that part too. If you're not yet subscribed to my newsletter, go in the description box, go check it out. I have hundreds and hundreds of women who read it every single week. It's like a condensed version of what I say in the Good Girl Syndrome show. Plus, I add some exercises. You have like reflection prompts, little exercises where you can practice for yourself how to apply this into your life. So if you're interested in that, go check the description box for that link. And I think on that note, sending you so much love, so much good vibes, so many good vibes, and I will see you next week. Bye, my friend.